You are listening to The Players Lounge with your host, Alex Ramirez, on the Pro 10 Radio Network, a production of Pro 10 Global Sports. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Players Lounge presented by Pro 10 Global Sports and Pro 10 International. Today is Tuesday, May 27th. I am your host, Alex Ramirez. Riding shotgun with me today is ATP WTA journalist and writer of his blog, Tennis Acumen, Pete Zebron. Pete, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, Alex. Wonderful to be back on the show. Thank you. Yes,
thanks for being here. And joining us, I want to remind everybody that you can call the show at area code 347-637-1197 if you have questions for our guests. You can also reach us on Twitter at Pro10Radio and check pro10radio.com for all the podcasts and future show information. Just a quick reminder that we started a campaign to support the orphans at the Elora Academy in Africa that serve the less fortunate children across the slums of Kisumu City and Western Kenya. Please check pro10radio.com website and click on the donate button. We have a great show for you today. We have two guests. Our first guest was one of the first top-ranked players who were developed by the famed Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy. He was an All-American at the University of Arkansas in 1986, was ranked among the top 5 Division I singles players in the U.S., a member of the 1986 U.S. Junior Davis Cup college team, and participated in Russia as a member of the American team in the U.S. Goodwill Games. He founded the U.S. Rookie Professional Tennis Team in 1988. In 1990, he was hired to serve as the head coach for the Billie Jean King's World Team Tennis franchise, Wellington Aces, in 1990 and 91. In 1992, he was hired as a head coach and general manager of the World Team Tennis franchise, Tampa Bay Action. He's the author of the book Hiding Inside the Baseline. Bobby Blair, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Well, Alex, thanks for having me. It's very exciting, and it's a great way to get our summer started. So thanks for having me. And Pete, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Can you still hear me okay? Bobby, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. I think we lost Pete. I hope he can call back and get on the show. Anyway, we want to get started right now. We just kind of get to you. Can you tell us how, when you started tennis, how did you get started in the sport of tennis? Who introduced you? How did it all start for you?
Well, I was born, October 24th, 1964, and, I was born in a hotbed of tennis in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and my mom played semi-pro basketball, kind of like the equivalent to a level just below the WNBA in the 1950s, and she was also a semi-pro tennis player, and she had a great game, and we moved to Orlando when I was young, and one summer when I was about 9 years old, and after playing, many months with my mom in the public parks, to be exact, I'd go down there and she'd hit around with me, and she was so good. It was just amazing. When your mom does something really cool, it's like you think you have the coolest mom in the whole world.
Right.
And she helped me for about 6 months, and then finally summer came around, and she took me down to the Orlando Tennis Center, which is really, an incredible historical place. Bill Tilden played there, and Bill Talbert, and all the great players from the 40s, 50s, Fred Stolle, and all the really great players. Laver played there. And so I grew up there and went into a tennis clinic one summer that was being run by Jim Kelleher, who was the tennis pro there. And, I just loved it so much. And, my mom from the very beginning, I came from pretty humble beginnings. My dad was a painter by trade. We never had any extra money whatsoever. And my mom always kind of said, even when I was 8, 9, 10, tennis could be really special for you, and it might be a way for you to really do something great in life and may give you opportunities that we might not be able to provide you that would, have financial costs, associated with it. So Jim Kelleher was my first coach, and he took me until I was about 13. He ended up going to law school. I think I may have stayed with him forever. And he wrote me an incredibly poignant letter early on, which we talk about in the book, how when I started to get pretty good, I started getting a little cocky and a little bit out of line. He wrote me this incredible letter that we actually published in the book, Barry and I. And and then I ended up going to the Orlando Racket Club and had a couple really great coaches. Betty Pratt, she was a Wimbledon semifinalist in the 40s. She played Maureen Connolly, and it was amazing. She kind of taught me. You would think that Betty would have taught me how to serve and volley and how to be really good around the net, but she really was teaching me how to beat players that would come to the net. And so she helped me with my angle passing shots and topspin lobs and strategy. And and then one day I had the break of a lifetime. Nick Bollettieri offered me a full scholarship. At that time, my mom was real sick with cancer, and my dad was not doing well at all. And a blessing from God came. And, I wasn't that great a player, maybe number 10 in the state of Florida. And a full scholarship to the NBTA, I talk about it, $10 in my pocket, 2 pairs of shoes from Kmart, and 2 rackets, one not strong. And Nick said, hey, you're with me. And a few years later, I left there, one of the top juniors in the United States, a runner-up in the U.S. National Boys Clay Courts, just barely lost to Aaron Crickstein for the number 1 U.S. ranking in junior tennis. And the rest is history, and I knew all along, though, that I was a little different. I know we'll talk about that tonight. It was a struggle, but that's how I got my start and kind of ended up on the world stage in tennis. And, thanks to all the people in Orlando and certainly thanks to Nick Bollettieri, you and I wouldn't be on the phone tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. And, you brought up a good point because, I coach, and you said you knew you were a little different at the very beginning. Can you talk a little bit about at what age did you kind of start figuring out, like, hey, I'm not the same as everybody else, and when do I start letting people know about this? Because I'm sure it's got to be very difficult as a young boy. You know something's different. You just don't know how to really express yourself, and then how are people going to take you, when you tell them?
Well, I think it's important for the audience to know what we're talking about is that I was gay, and
yes.
I just absolutely was brought up. My uncle was the athletic director at Notre Dame, Dick Rosenthal, and my grandmother was the biggest Notre Dame football fan on the planet. My mom did all the ironing for the Catholic Church. I was an altar boy, and so anytime, those types of subjects came up in my household or with my family or vacations or Thanksgivings, anytime there'd be a person on TV, if Harvey Milk was on TV at the time when I was 10 or 11, or anything like that was going on, I got this really weird, feeling that maybe I feel like they feel because I just felt like I never really had that attraction towards girls, although I enjoyed hanging out and going on dates and having a lot of fun, but I never felt like that emotional attachment. And I also knew that, in those days I was being brought up, it was wrong, it was sinful, and in a lot of ways it was considered a mental sickness, that you were just mentally sick. And so I was dealing with a lot of concerns that, well, maybe I just, I was a late bloomer, I reached puberty late, I wasn't a big, tall, strong kid, I was a little guy, and so it's like, maybe it's just that, I haven't reached that point like some of my other friends, but by the time I was 13, 14, I kind of knew something was different because they were all chasing girls. I was doing it just to look cool. I think they were doing it because they were actually turned on. I was just doing it because I thought it was the cool thing. So I kind of knew right away that I was different. But, I was blessed in a way that, one, I didn't look like it. I didn't talk like it. I was one of the most popular kids. I was blessed with, I was a decent-looking kid, and so I wasn't effeminate. I say I was lucky, or maybe it was the biggest curse, because maybe if I was, I would have come out early, and it would have been known, and, I wouldn't have had all the terrible struggles and turmoils and the exhaustion that I went through covering it up, because maybe I just would have been outed and everyone said, "With Bobby, hey, we know you are." But I was one that nobody knew, and even just this past year, people have called Bobby and say, "I just can't believe it for a second. Just tell me it's not true." Not that they cared, but they didn't believe it. They just couldn't believe it. So, but I knew 13, 14 that I was different. And the thing was, though, it wasn't like I was interested in my friends. I just felt a connection with them, meaning I thought it was cool to hang out and watch TV and go to movies, and I loved playing tennis with my friends and, going to the pool and going to the park. And so I just found that to be very, very, important to me. And, a lot of my friends I felt somewhat like of an emotional attachment to. It's like, go to the tournament, I'm 14, the tournament's over on Sunday, everybody's ready to get home. Like, I've almost got, like, tears in my eyes because I wish the tournament wasn't over because I was having so much fun at the tournament. And I was having so much fun hanging out with my friends. So I don't know if that was gay or just, I knew I was more emotional than my friends.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much.
Hi, Bobby. Back on the line. My call dropped. Sorry about that, and thanks for elaborating on that. And, growing up, you were one of the elite junior players here in the U.S. Was wondering, was it your goal at that point in time to be a world-class player and go pro?
It was. I mean, I grew up in, pretty tough beginnings. I mean, my dad, God bless him, he was, he tried in so many ways to be a good dad, but quite frankly, he failed in so many departments. I mean, we moved all the time, and he could never keep a consistent painting job, and, we were moving from place to place. And my mom was such a good Catholic, when you're married, you stay married, you don't get divorced. And, and then my mom got diagnosed with cancer when I was 14, and we talk about in the book those 4 years of incredible sorrow, just watching her wither away. And then there was a huge moment in Louisville that Barry wrote, so touching and so incredibly. I mean, I don't know anyone that hasn't just broken down and cried when they read that chapter. And, because Barry brought it to life. And, those 4 or 5 years, it's just, I knew that tennis was going to be my exit strategy to a life that my parents were never going to be able to provide me. So, I mean, I worked so incredibly hard. I think that's what Nick really loved about me, is I worked so hard that the kids that were there that came from, better financial resources and maybe didn't have to be good tennis players to have a successful life, Nick wanted me around those kids to show them the work ethic and to show them the passion to do something great. And I bought into that, and I wanted that, and I knew that it was going to give me a life that I could only dream of. And thank God for Nick Bollettieri, and thank God for people like Billie Jean King later on in my career, and for Tom Pucci, who brought me to Arkansas, and Ron Hightower, who helped me, and teammates like Tim Siegel. And these people were big people in my life that really helped me along. So yes, I knew right along, early on. I mean, guys, I'm serious. 11, 12 years old, I knew that tennis was going to be the only thing that was going to give me a decent life.
Alex, I think we may have lost Alex there.
Yep, I'm here, Pete.
Okay. No, Alex, you're on, Bobby. I don't think we have Alex on. And, Bobby, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit. You mentioned how much Nick meant to you, but how and why did you choose Nick to write the foreword for your book?
Well, I'll never forget, Labor Day. It was literally Labor Day, Monday, 1980. And, we showed up in our old beat-up car, and, I was so embarrassed. You would thought that by then I was just turned 15. Well, I was getting ready to turn 15. You would have thought by then I would have gotten used to showing up at the tournaments with the worst car of any kid playing junior tennis in Florida, and you would have thought that all that would have been, kind of behind me. But, we pulled up there and, emptied out the car with 2 rackets, like I said, and no money, $10. And Nick just immediately embraced me. Welcome. You're going to be my son. You're going to become a great player. And he had known me for, 3 minutes, and he was giving me a high five and loving me. And then Carolina Murphy and Julio Morris and Steve Owens and Greg Brunick and Gabriel, they all just embraced me. And, right then and there, I just knew that I'd found my home. And I'll never, ever be more indebted to another human being as Nick Bollettieri. So he recognized my work ethic. He recognized my tenacity. He probably saw my lack of talent. As hard as I worked, I should have been a lot better than I was. So it means I just didn't quite have the goods to win a U.S. Open. But, I think Nick believes that winning the U.S. Open in life is more important than U.S. Opens. I think he would say that at 82 years old. So, Nick knew me better than anybody. He took me from scratch. He gave me a career. And we've been great friends for now 30-something years, I guess 34 years now. And there was nobody else in the world I would have had written it but Nick.
That is great. That's great. It's nice to have that influence in your life, and for that long of a period of time that really molded you to who you are today. That was really good to hear. Bobby, you started off in the. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you faced in trying to make it in the pro circuit when you first started?
Well, the first thing is the biggest challenge I always felt is hiding, literally my sexuality, hiding the small crushes that I would have on certain friends. And I know that some people might laugh about that, but, it's what I dealt with. And it was really strange because nobody would have ever thought that was happening to me, but it was. And the emotional distraughtness of not being able to be with someone that you want to be with and to really not feel like you're living an authentic life. So I dealt with that challenge first, and that never allowed me to feel superior to another player because I always felt like, that they were not dealing with this. They had it so much easier than I did. It was so easy for them to have a girlfriend, and they weren't hiding something so traumatic. So I felt like that was, getting down 4-0 and 2 breaks in the first set in many ways. And I'm not trying to make any excuses for not, winning a U.S. Open or even being a top 10 player in the world, but that was really an overwhelming stress for me. And so
right.
Then you put on top of the fact that I grew up in Florida on the slow clay courts. We had red clay at the Orlando Tennis Center. We had green clay at the Orlando Racket Club. I was a heck of a clay court player. I think I may have only lost 4 or 5 junior matches on clay courts in a 5-year period, and certainly almost beat Aaron Krickstein in the finals of the boys' 18 clay courts. And so I was a pusher where I could hit some pretty big shots, but it wasn't my comfort level. I was much more interested in the guy missing than me hitting a winner or a great shot. So I had a pretty good serve. I was super, super fast. I wouldn't make hardly any unforced errors. But, in 1983, even though I was in the top 5 in the juniors and the 18s, and I was beating guys like Luke Jensen and Robbie Weiss and, all the best of the best, they were playing a bigger game, and they just were a little more erratic and making a few more errors. But they were playing a much bigger game. And then when I got into the pros in the 84, 85, 86, 87 range, playing pro tennis in college, and then after college, the serves got huge. The forehands even got bigger than Krickstein and Arias had. The guys were stronger. They were hitting the ball by me. And the really good ones were able to rally pretty darn good, too. So the game totally changed. I was a Harold Sullivan. We get our haircut at the same place here in Fort Lauderdale. We live only a few blocks away from each other. And, I missed that era by probably 5 years where my style of game could have probably been on the world stage. But, I look at it like I was able to have a great career. I was able to travel the world. I met some of the greatest people in the planet, in the world of tennis and sports. And I was able to use those relationships and build on those relationships to do some special things after tennis.
That is so great. Thank you so much for sharing. We're talking with Bobby Blair, and we're coming up on a break, Bobby, so we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back talking with Bobby Blair.
Hey, Thirst, can I try out a few Coke Summer sound effects on you? Cool. You okay with this? And this? And what about this? Ha! Gotcha there, Thirst. That wasn't sound effects. That was a Coke. I'm no longer thirsty. You're so out of here. Coca-Cola. Open happiness.
What is this bill for $562? Let me call these people.
Thanks for calling Big Tobacco. How can I be of assistance?
Hi, I was going through my mail and saw this bill saying I owe $562 for smoking-related expenses.
That's correct, ma'am.
Yeah, what's the deal with this bill?
You see, smokers miss more work and retire earlier, which costs Nevadans $903 million in lost productivity per year. Also, smokers get sick with diseases like lung cancer and emphysema, costing another $565 million in medical expenses. So, when you add it up and divide by a total number of Nevadans, it comes out to $562 per Nevada household.
Okay, but I don't smoke.
Well, whether you smoke or not, every Nevadan pays the bill.
You know what? I'm not paying this bill.
Actually, you already did. And you'll be making the same payment again next year. Well, thank you for your call.
Hello?
Is smoking worth it? Learn more at smokefreevegas.com. That's smokefreevegas.com. Or for free help quitting smoking, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Made possible by funding from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Little Caesars, home of the $5 hot and ready pepperoni pizza, now has a deep, deep dish pizza with 8 crispy caramelized corner slices and even more cheese and pepperoni. So head on down and grab a large for just $8 and tell them Alan Varner sent you. They won't know who that is, but as a voice actor, I'm always trying to get my name out there. Check me out at alandoesvoices.com. That's ALAN doesvoices.com. But first, get the new deep, deep dish pizza. It's hot and ready every day from 4 to 8 p.m. for just $8, only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
At participating locations plus tax.
Hi, this is Jeff Salzenstein.
Hi, this is Kendall Hart.
Hi, this is Dick Gould.
Hi, this is John Embry, and you're listening to the Coach's Corner on Pro 10 Radio Network. Catch me live on Wednesday, May 28th at 1 o'clock Pacific.
Welcome back to the Players Lounge, presented today by Pro 10 Global Sports and Pro 10 International. We are talking with author Bobby Blair. And Bobby, now that we're back and we're talking about you authored a book, can you tell us a little bit about your book and how that came about?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, it was August the 4th, 2012, so we're coming up on almost 2 years. A dear friend of mine and somebody who I had an amazing relationship with, Wesley Kyler, who I'd been with and spent a lot of years with, in the closet and privately with. He passed away, and he had a pretty serious drug addiction, and he was in San Francisco, and he was just not making it in life. And even though we had not been together for many, many years, I still had a cell phone with him in my name, and I would keep paying that cell phone, hoping that one day that he would call me and tell me that he's really ready to get his life in order and get a fresh start. And I'm talking about, this was one of the greatest young people I've ever met. He was an incredible basketball player at Winter Haven High School, and he had scholarship offers around the country, and was extremely talented on the internet, and he was an incredible graphic designer and just one of the greatest people I'd ever met. And and he really helped me at certain stages of my life, and he just helped me really feel good about myself when I was really struggling with my sexual orientation. And he passed away of an accidental overdose, literally on the streets, 2200 Market Street to be exact, in the Castro district in San Francisco. And I just spoke to him 5 hours before this happened. He called me and said he really, really wanted to come home and that he would take my help, and his mom and dad were ready for him to come home, and his sister was ready. And the last thing he said to me, Paul Davis wrote a song called "Sweet Life." It's a big popular song in the '70s. He said and told me that I gave him an amazing sweet life, and we kind of sang the song over the phone. And I said, "I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll buy your ticket." And that night he passed away, and he was found dead on the sidewalk at Market Street. I just said to myself, you know what, I'm partially to blame for this. I know I did everything I could to help him, but you know what I didn't do? And Barry, again, brought this to life in the book, is I didn't teach him how to live his truth, how to live his authentic life and address drug addiction. I taught him how to hide and cover and not tell the truth about who you really are and what your issues are, because I lived in the closet with him every day since I met him, since the day he was 19 years old. So I felt like, you know what, in his memory and his name, I've got to tell my story, because I can't be out there educating people that it's okay not to live your truth, face your demons, be who God made you to be, step up to the plate, and, try to make a difference. And I also felt like, guys, that, in those days in the 80s, I know it would have been really hard, but there were many times where I almost got caught. There were many situations where I kind of almost got busted with being gay. And I felt like, God, if I could have come out in the 80s and here's a top-ranked college player, semifinals with the All-American. Beating guys like Rick Leach and all the top players. And I was a top player, as high as number 4 in the United States. And if I would have come out, just think of the difference that could have made in sports and college athletics. And I mean, look at the difference that I could have made. So I said, you know what? I don't want to miss the boat again. And so with Wesley passing away and me being a leader now in LGBT publishing, we have the third or fourth largest entertainment magazine every week in the whole country, and we've got the leading newspaper, top 2 or 3 newspaper in the United States. I felt like I needed to be authentic and real and straight up with who I am. And I never, ever wanted to show people that you could look like you're happy and say that you're happy and not living your truth. And I feel like I really let Wesley down. And so in his memory, I wrote this book.
That is awesome. And speaking of writing the book, we have a special guest with us today, Barry Buss. He wrote the book with you, and I want to bring him on the show right now. Barry, are you there?
I am here. How you guys doing?
Wow.
Doing great, thank you.
I love Barry Buss.
You guys sound great.
Wow, Barry,
thank you so
you?
much for... Are you, Barry?
I'm here. I'm good, guys. How about yourself?
We're doing great. We've been talking about the book, and I was hoping you could share with us your friendship and how you guys came about writing this book. You shared a little bit of a story with us on the book, and you guys got together and wrote a great book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
No, I would love to. Yeah, that's great. It's interesting. Bobby and I reconnected in the social media world just through Facebook a couple years ago, and we played. I think we played in 1982 against each other. So it was 31 years. Had gone between the time we played in the juniors and then reconnecting socially. And at the end of 2012, I wrote my own book. I wrote a personal memoir of my junior tennis and college tennis career and, my difficulties growing up in that environment that Bobby read and was very supportive of. And it was around Christmas of 2012. Bobby and I were just sharing private messages. He was just congratulating me on the accomplishment and so forth. And in the course of those conversations, I had noticed that he was out about his LGBT publishing company, and I congratulated him on that. And I said, it's just great that you're active in your community and doing all this great social work and stuff like that. And he goes, if I ever get the courage to tell my story, I'd like you to write it. And this was in, I think, December of 2012, and we just kind of left it there. And then it was, fast forward about probably 4 or 5 months. I think it was like May of last year, almost about a year ago today. And all of a sudden I was just, late at night, and all of a sudden I get this message on my timeline on Facebook from Bobby. It just says, I think I'm ready. And so that was it. And then we got on the phone the next day, and within a matter of a week, he was out here in California with a tape recorder and telling me his story, and we worked the whole thing out. And that was basically, I think, June of last year. And then we just sat down and cranked the thing out over 8 months, and there we go.
That is so great. Bobby, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will tell you that that you never know when in life that you get a blessing. And Barry Buss, was like the coolest kid in junior tennis. He was like one of the best looking guys in the world, and he's like one of those guys you definitely don't want to think that you're gay. You definitely don't want a guy like Barry Buss or Kelly Jones or Rick Leach, or you don't want these guys thinking you're gay. So when Barry Buss, of all people who I respected and admired, not only as a tennis player, but he was just a good guy. He was always an authentic guy, and he was always fair and just a good guy. When he accepted me and embraced me, I felt like, you know what, maybe there's something here going on that I don't know about. Maybe there's more people that I'm afraid of and scared to discuss this with that might be able to help me with this. And I always felt like that if people like Barry and, I really felt like if the straight community got on board with this story, and it could be told from a straight perspective of really the struggles that someone like me goes through, and so many thousands of young people have gone through, and in some cases, and in many cases, quite honestly, still going through today. I felt like that we could really make a difference. So, so Barry and I, immediately hooked up, and then, to not my surprise, but to my incredible happiness, his passion to the story. I mean, he was so passionate about it, and he did so much research on, what it's like to be gay and what are the struggles and what are the things that we've gone through. He did the whole background on Harvey Milk and what Harvey went through and what a difference he made. And so I was just absolutely enthralled by his passion to really dig into understanding this. And then the final thing happened is that he really was heartfelt about making a difference. And that's where we are today together as two best friends now. We'll be best friends for the rest of our life, is that Barry completely gets the importance of this story of making a difference. And because I'm not a household name, it actually makes it easier for us to reach more people, because if you're LeBron James or if you're Andre Agassi or Pete Peppers, yeah, you're gay, okay, that's great. They're not, but, people would say, oh, that's kind of cool, but, hey, I'd be gay too if I had $500 million. But for average people like myself and Jason Collins and, pretty good football players like Michael Samms, for the average guy that had a good career, maybe not a superstar, but a super story about the struggles, what was it like for Michael Samms in high school? What was it like when he was in ninth grade playing Pop Warner football? And what were the struggles that he was feeling in the locker room? So I think that we resonate with the millions of kids that are playing, soccer or tennis or golf or football in Midtown America, and they're sitting in their room wondering, what the heck am I going to do about this? I'm pretty good, but I'm not going to be great probably. I think that's where my story resonates. And Barry did an off-the-charts job of telling that story in a way that he deserves, in my opinion, an Academy Award. I mean, this guy's off the charts. He's like the best writer on the planet. And I can brag more about you, Barry, but Patrick McEnroe and the USTA and all the people in the tennis world are just absolutely going crazy for your blogs and for all the stuff that you're writing about how to get American tennis back on track. So it's just not the Bobby Blair story he's done. He's really now touching the hearts of how to help American tennis. So, that's why I am on Barry Bush.
Well, if I can add to that a little bit, Alex, first of all, thank you guys, really. Those are really kind words. One of the things I've noticed just, in my 40 years in the tennis community is a lot of the tennis media portray our sport as this one big, nonstop red carpet event. If you watch your tennis channel, and it's all just about the lifestyle. And if you've grown up in the sport, it's just it's almost criminally negligent for them to not just to overlook the struggle that really goes on for so many of us, because the overwhelming majority of us are not going to be in front of a camera and give an acceptance speech or a victory speech. That's not the reality. The reality is there's an awful lot more guys like myself who struggled with a difficult father, tennis father, Bobby, who struggled with a self-realization issue all throughout his career. And the fact of the matter is, so my goal here is to try to bring the struggle out of the darkness a little bit and start a communication that, we as a sport have a responsibility to these young kids growing up. I was struggling in an abusive upbringing. Bobby is, living out this horrible secret, where he just cannot, he can't be himself. And, we were under the guidance of the USTA, and, we were Junior Davis Cup players and, big-time college players and stuff, and there really was no support system in place at all for kids like us in the 1980s. And it's important now that we fast forward 30 years, part of this process that I've done with my book and with Bobby's book is to educate people that, hey, this stuff's going on out there. There are kids just like Bobby today at the Bollettieri Academy, at college campuses, who are hiding right now. And it's 2014, and that's just no way to live. And it doesn't need to be that way. And my goal, as a straight male, is to try to create a bridge of communication here between both parties here. Because if kids like Bobby are doing the closet thing well, we don't know they exist. And if they're doing their thing well, they think they're getting away with it. So both parties are completely unaware that the other exists, and that's just not. It doesn't need to be that way, And these kids are struggling, and in Bobby's story, we showed with the complexity of trying to hide your entire existence from people.
Well, you make a great point, Barry, about that, because Matt Dooley, Matt Dooley was a player that played at Notre Dame, and He was a pretty good player. I guess he played 3, 4, 5 for Notre Dame, a top ranked Division I team. And just 2 years ago, he tried to take his life, and he tried to commit suicide because he couldn't tell his parents, he couldn't tell his coaches, he couldn't tell anybody. So in 2012, I think maybe, or even 11, he tried to take his own life. And here we are in this decade where talented, beautiful young people still are committing suicide or trying to, screaming out that they can't live. And you know what's interesting, guys, is that what's really hard about all this is that we don't want to let our family down. Like, if it was just about me being gay, you know, I could have done that. I could have lived with that. I always thought I had some decent skills. I always thought I could be okay. I always thought, you know, if I just came out, maybe I'll just own the biggest gay nightclub in New York City. You know, that's kind of like how I think. But you know what? I didn't want to let my mom down when she was dying of cancer. I didn't want to let my dad down, who was a bigot. I didn't want to let my uncle down, who ran Notre Dame football. He was an athletic director. I didn't want to let my cousins down, and my aunts and uncles, and my coaches, and my junior coach, Nick Bollettieri. He's the manliest man, the toughest guy. He makes Bobby Knight look like an amateur. You know, when it comes to tough. I mean, am I going to tell that guy in 1983, I'm your number one junior here, man, but I'm gay? No way. So this is the problem, is that we need these young people like me to know that Nick would embrace. You know what it did to me when Nick Bollettieri stood behind that podium last year at the US Open and said, Bobby, I love you unconditionally. You're my son. You can be yellow, brown, black, white, gay, straight. I love you. That was the biggest game changer for me in my life. And you know what? The coaches that are out there now, they need to be saying that in the locker room. The very first day that freshman lands there in school, listen, if you have a drug problem, come see me. I'm going to help you. If you're having sexual orientation issues, I'm here to help you. We've got people that we can connect you with to help problem. It helps you understand how to feel better about addressing it and how you can live your life and be better for it. And that was the problem. I had nobody saying to me, Bobby, we don't care if you're gay. We care about that top 10 lobby you hit on every 3-hole point. You know? So And I'm still not seeing that yet. And that's why Barry talks about we need this conversation. We want to go to college campuses. We want college coaches to tell their kids it's okay to be gay. So when Notre Dame stepped up 2 months ago, and did this incredible video accepting Matt Dooley, that is the beginning of an amazing moment in NCAA sports, where coaches say it's okay.
Right. And, you know, guys,
I think a little further on it, Alex.
I could talk. What was that?
Oh, okay. Go ahead. No, if you got a cut, I understand.
No, I could. I wish we had more time because I could talk about this forever. We have so many more questions for Bobby, but we're coming up on a break. Bobby, I want to thank you so much for being with us, and Barry for joining the show. We're kind of short on time, but Bobby, we're going to extend an invitation for you to come back on the show at a later date because we have literally about 8-10 more questions that we didn't get to, but everything we covered was so good and so important. And any final thoughts about it before we sign off on this segment?
I would just like to, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Barry Buss. Barry's on the phone tonight. I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. His partner in life, MJ Landry, she was incredibly supportive. She was a student at the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy with me, and when she embraced me and said, Bobby, we love you. It's not a problem. All of us girls are heartbroken, but it's okay. When Barry and his people came to the forefront and really supported me, it gave me kind of like it was throwing gasoline on the fire. And so, Barry, I thank you very much. And, Barry and I are going to be in New York at the U.S. Open. Billie Jean King is committed to be with us, Nick Bollettieri, and L.P. Grinderson. We're all going to be together. Barry, of course, will be sitting right next to me. And we're going to be doing a book signing at the U.S. Open bookstore. And anybody that's at the U.S. Open during Labor Day weekend, friend us on Facebook. We'd love to introduce you to Billie Jean and Nick and everyone, and we'd love to see you at our book signing.
That is great. Barry, Bobby,
congratulations
for being with us. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having us, and look forward to doing it again with you guys.
Yes, and we'll definitely have you back on. We've got a lot more to cover. The book is Hiding Inside the Baseline. Thank you to Bobby Blair, Barry Butt, and don't go anywhere. We will be right back with Yann Auzoux. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Gatorade was created over 50 years ago when a University of Florida assistant football coach approached a team of physicians and asked them to determine why so many of his players lacked endurance. The researchers discovered two key factors were causing the Gator players to wilt. The electrolytes and the carbohydrates the players' bodies used for energy were lost through sweat and were not being replaced. The researchers took these findings to the lab and scientifically formulated a new, precisely balanced carbohydrate electrolyte beverage that adequately replaced the key components lost by the Gator players through sweat and exercise. They called this concoction Gatorade. Fueling legends for over 50 years. Gatorade, is it in you?
The Den Academy is a family affair. You know, my dad, my wife, my brother, myself, we're all a part of it. We all grew up in tennis. We all are passionate about tennis.
Being on the court with your son is good. We both have a good time with it. We both say things differently but mean the same thing.
Let's see the grip. Don't change it. Oh, I saw it. What makes a great coach is many things, but it ultimately comes down to seeing the game correctly and then being able to communicate that to the player efficiently, right? So just nice and whippy behind that ball. When you finally get through to a player and you get them on the same page as you are, it's a pretty cool feeling. Oh, nice. Getting it. You get giddy. You know, you get excited. It's this competition. This is emotion. It's intensity out there. I mean, you know, that's what passion is all about, right?
Hi, this is Vic Braden, and you're listening to the Pro 10 Radio Network. Catch me live on the Coach's Corner, Thursday, May 29th at 7 p.m.
And welcome back to the Players Lounge, presented today by Pro 10 Global Sports and Pro 10 International. Alex Ramirez here with Pete Zebron. Pete, our next guest today is a former Davis Cup player who played the best in the world. He won over 6 national and international events in both singles and doubles. As a coach, he has helped players at every level from beginners to the top 20 players in the world. He was the head coach at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and for the past 7 years, he has taken Holton Arms tennis team to a new height with a 97% winning percentage. He was voted Washington Post Coach of the Year in 2008 and Montgomery County Washington Post Coach of the Year in 2010. He has an instructional website, fifthsettennis.com, and developed a product called the Sweet Spotter. Yann Auzoux, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yes. And with me today is Pete Zebron. And Yann, can you just get us started? How did you get started in tennis, and what got you going in the sport?
Well, it's a long story. Actually, I grew up in Cameroon, which is where Yannick Noah was from, and his father was a dear friend of my dad's, and Yannick Noah actually went to school with my brother. So with that connection in mind and Yannick Noah doing so well, my parents thought that it would be a good idea for me to start playing tennis. I had a good arm. I used to play ping pong and had a pretty uncanny ability for racket sports. So I learned very fast and, started tennis actually quite late at 11 years old. And by 12 years old, I was national champion in Cameroon. By 15, I was on the Davis Cup team for Cameroon. So I, rose to the top fairly quickly. And then caught the bug, like all of us, and, just pursued my career in both France and then came to the United States to come to college and do tennis in college, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's a
great.
wonderful story, Jan. Thanks for sharing that. And, I dive pretty deep with respect to looking at results, obviously not just ATP and WTA, but the ITF events and the Challenger Satellite Futures and whatnot. Now, I know that there's a lot of tournaments in Africa for the juniors and the futures and satellites. Can you talk a little bit about some of your favorite experiences in playing in Africa?
I was very fortunate to actually be invited to be part of an African development team that traveled throughout the southern portion of Africa. So I got to play with and against some of the Black brothers. You might remember Wayne and Byron Black.
Yes.
We played in both. Correct, they're from Zimbabwe. So we actually toured in Zimbabwe. We toured in Botswana and that region in Africa. And I had just a great time. It was lovely to be exposed to that kind of level of tennis. And, people don't actually know that African tennis has been quite good because you don't have so many players nowadays that are doing well. But, the Black brothers were a perfect example, including their sister. And, you had a couple of guys from Morocco that were doing very well, like Orazi and Karim Alami, if you remember. You also had El Nawi. Yeah. Correct. El Nawi was doing very well. So I came at about the time where, those guys were performing at the highest level, at the international level. So I was exposed to that, and that was just a blessing.
That is great. So you went through your career and you played tennis. Now, tell us a little bit about when you caught the bug for coaching. When did you know that was also one of your gifts, is to share your experiences and give it to other players?
I must say that everybody in my family is an instructor in some respect. My father is an 8th and 9th grade retired now, but teacher. Both my sisters actually teachers as well, and my brother, who used to play soccer, also coaches soccer in his off time. So, when I came to the United States, I realized very quickly that professional tennis was going to be hard for me because I had a lot of injuries. I had 2 knee surgeries by the time I was 23. So that put a stop to my aspirations to play on the tour and be healthy. You have to be healthy to be successful on tour. So, I started to teach tennis in Washington, D.C., and figured out very quickly that I had a pretty good gift. I was able to explain very complicated concepts in a very, very simple way, using analogies and helping people to relate, through their line of work, which is always the best way to kind of get people to understand what they're doing. If you're talking with a lawyer, you just sort of use legal terms to get them to do what you want them to do on the court. And that was just an instant hit. People loved it. I guess they also probably loved a little bit of the French accent, to be honest.
Right.
They kept on coming. At one point, I was really stretching myself to a little thin. I had number 1 in the 12 in the area, number 14 in the number 1 in the 14s, number 1 in the 16s, number 1 in the 18s, and then I had a young French player who came and had wins against Leighton Hewitt in the juniors. So I had the full range of professional and amateur players that were performing at the highest level. So that really got me excited to be able to produce players of that caliber and keep them really honed in on their skills. Later on, if you know Ronald Agenor from Haiti, when he came back from his short retirement, came to the Legg Mason here in Washington, D.C., and asked me to coach him along, for 2 events, which I did, and that too was also a very exciting learning experience to be exposed to someone who had wins against Andre Agassi, and to be able to be part of his workouts and help him to kind of visualize what he should be doing next. So coaching has a lot of different facets. You can be coaching really, really young kids all the way to top 20 in the world, and this full range has really given my passion just a different dimension.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Yann. I can certainly relate to you. Both of my parents were teachers. My father was an English composition professor, and my mom a Montessori teacher. And actually, when I was going to grad school, I taught a couple of years of high school and at a private university as well. So I relate to that. And what you said, talking to lawyers in their terms, I'm a big I'm a big analogy user as well, so what you said about how you get your points across certainly works. And wanted to ask you to elaborate on a couple of things, namely your unbelievable 97% winning percentage at Holton Arms tennis, and as well your personal philosophy that you use on the court with the players.
Well, that's a great question, and I have a very special place for teachers. So what you just said really warmed me up a little bit. Well, my philosophy is quite simple. I believe that anybody can do anything that they set their mind to. So when someone comes on the court, I don't really focus so much on technique, even though technically you have to be sound to be able to be injury free. But I feel like a lot of times people pay too much attention to technique, and technique is never going to be perfect. And I think that's a hurdle to people's improvement at times. Where they just want to have a perfect backhand like Roger Federer, or an incredible serve, or something that really, to be realistic, is not going to be achieved overnight. It takes time, and it takes many, many years to be able to fine-tune those kind of shots. So my philosophy is quite simple. I just want them to understand how to be efficient. Okay, and being efficient on the court means, first of all, understanding the geometry of the court, which is something that people never talk about, really. They focus on technique, but understanding where the angles are, understanding where your opponent's weaknesses are, really focusing on the other person's game rather than on your own once you get into a competitive environment. So when I started to coach the Holton Arms School, which is now almost 11 years ago, I came on and the team was somewhat broken apart. There were a lot of girls that weren't playing because the former coach had left, and I guess, kind of a broken up team, and girls didn't want to participate anymore. It's an all-girls school, the Holton Arms School. So I came on, and I only had 7 players, and you need at least 12 to be able to make a team. So it took me a little bit to kind of build a team, and I did 2 things. The first one is the philosophy of the school was that when girls would come and try out, the ones that weren't good enough would be cut. And I established a no-cut policy because I figured that if someone shows an interest in the game, they should be able to be part of the game. So that was the very first thing that I instituted. I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to participate. So I established what we call the training team, which is a team that does not play matches, and then the traveling team, which is the team that actually competes for the school. So that was the very first move that I made. The second move that I made is I made sure that since the tryout period is so short, I needed to have a course that would get them ready in 2 weeks or less, so that they would be competitively ready. And that had so much less to do with technical enhancement and so much more to do with getting them to really figure out who they're playing, because at the rec level, there aren't that many different styles of play. You have your typical, player who's extremely consistent. You have people that are very fit, and then you most of the time have someone that just hits the ball very hard. So out of those 3 types of player, you need to figure out very quickly who you play. So I get the girls at the Holton Arms School to figure out, those 3 simple facts very quickly. And they learn to use, the court and the geometry of the court to the best of their advantage. So that seems to have worked very well because in the last, 10 and a half years, we finished first, basically 9 years out of 10, and finished second 1 season and tied for first another season. So we've been doing very, very well with many different teams because every year I get a different batch of girls. And usually I get about 1 or 2 girls that are actually tournament players. The rest of them are just your typical average high school girls. And we've been able to do very well, just clearly focusing on things that are not as conventional as what we're used to seeing out there, so.
That is great. So you did the coaching and you're coaching the team. What inspired you to start the website, and when did that actually kick off? When did it go online?
That's quite funny. It's one of those things where you get ready, not really knowing what's going to happen, and then an opportunity comes along, and you just happen to have had everything prepared for that particular opportunity. I was writing a book at the time called Tennis Revolution, and it was just kind of my thoughts that I had written down, concepts that I thought were important for the new batch of tennis players to know about. That, again, had a lot less to do with technique, but more to do with every other part of the game that makes you a dominant player. And I was introduced to Will Hamilton, who's also from my region, okay, who's the head pro at Fuzzy Yellow Balls that, most people know about. And, he came up to me, and he's always looking for content. So we sat down and chatted, and he took a quick look at my book and was blown away by, the content that I had written up. It was basically ready to be filmed. So the two of us did a test. We went to the Holton Arm School and filmed a 30-minute video on footwork with some of my top students. And he posted that video online, and literally overnight that video went viral and became, according to Google, one of the top 20 most watched sports video that day. So we realized very quickly that we had struck a nerve, that footwork obviously was something that people wanted to watch. And I had a very personal way to explain footwork that people seemed to relate to. So after that, test trial, Will Hamilton realized that this was really a must-do. So we filmed a course together that subsequently was extremely popular. So I decided that, that was probably another way for me to reach as many students as I could. As a teacher, as you very well know, you always want to really touch a lot of people and give them, feedback and give them instruction that can help them to grow their game. My passion is always to touch as many people as I can. And that was the best vehicle to do that, to be able to post videos online and have people watch them from all around the world. It's like having an international academy without necessarily being in one place at one time. So it was just a perfect fit for me, to be able to have both an online presence as well as an offline presence.
That is great. And now, in looking through your website, I was checking it out. A lot of really good content. People should check it out and definitely sign up and learn as much as they can. But you also have a product called the Sweet Spotter. Can you tell us a little bit how that came about? I think it's really interesting and how it's doing.
Yeah, what's funny about it is I was never exposed to baseball until I came to the United States. As you know, it's mostly an American sport, and North American, that is, and then, you have some pockets in South America and Cuba. But in France, it is not a popular game. I mean, I had never seen a baseball bat until I came here. Never even touched one until that fateful day when this one student of mine who was also involved in softball came on the tennis court and actually left, forgot her softball bat and got into her car and drove off with her mother. So I was between lessons, and I decided to fool around with it, just to kind of see what that felt like. I'm a tennis player, so I decided to serve with it, see if I could actually make contact. And to my surprise, not only did I make great contact, the sound and the purity of the line of delivery that forced me to sustain was insane. It actually made me focus on my toss. It made me focus on things that are so difficult to teach students. And it made me focus on them so intuitively that I was like, there's something there. I obviously returned the bat because it wasn't mine, and I went to, the store and bought one. That was actually my very first bat, and I actually rigged it. I built the grip to be more like a tennis racket grip, and, decided to practice with it and decided to have some of my students try it. And same thing, the very first reaction I noticed is everybody had a huge smile on their face, which, to be honest with you, when you teach, young players, is not always the case. Sometimes they see the redundancy of, their regular tennis exercises just kind of take over, and they're not so thrilled all the time, especially when you make them do something that they don't like. But with the bat, no one complained. Everybody had a smile. They were fighting to be able to take turns, and I had never seen anything like it. It was almost like an aha moment. Wow, maybe I should be teaching softball on the tennis court, and those girls would pay more attention. So, I realized that there was something there. So I started to look online to see if there was a similar product out there, and to my surprise, there wasn't. So, at the George Washington University, I had briefly attempted to get a mechanical engineering degree, and I did that for one semester and quit. But during that time, I had learned to, draw prototypes. So I started to draw a prototype for the tennis bat. And it goes back to all these skills that we acquire in life. You never know when they're going to come handy, and that became handy. So I looked around in the United States to find a manufacturer that would take me seriously enough to be able to produce something like this, and was actually turned down by everybody I spoke to. Everybody laughed at me. Some people told me I couldn't be serious. And then I turned to the Asian market and found the same manufacturer that makes bats for Nike. And obviously they didn't laugh at me and said, all right, we'll take on the project and see how it goes. So that took about a year to go through the development with different types of prototypes. We tried different weights, different lengths, different sizes and different types of material, and came up with one composite that was very, very true to a regular tennis racket. We have three models. We have one that's 9 ounce, about the size of a regular junior racket. We have two adults. One is 11 ounces and one is 13 ounces. So the 11 ounce is actually for recreational players, and the 13 ounce is more for real players and professional players. So I decided I'm going to try to market it. I did a crowdfunding campaign to kind of test the product and see if people would like it, and got all the funding to be able to bring this dream to reality, to actually market and commercialize the product in September last year. To my surprise, the product actually became very popular very quickly. We now have, and I can't use their name, but we have 5 active Grand Slam winners that are practicing with it. We have a couple of junior Wimbledon and junior U.S. Open champions that actually ordered some as well. We have people all around the world that have ordered it and, returning some pretty amazing testimonials. And also, when you put something out, you never really know who is going to be using it and how they're going to be using it. So recently, and this person I can talk about, she's a lady who's a tennis player, and she's the head of the therapy center at the Rogers Cup in Toronto. She used to work for the Maple Leafs as a therapist as well as the Blue Jays. So she's someone who's extremely reputable in Canada for therapy and shoulder injuries and, kind of rehabbing pro athletes. And she contacted me and wanted to order one. So she ordered one and was amazed, blown away. So much so that 2 weeks later she called me again and ordered an additional 3, for her therapy centers. And she wanted to have it so that she could rehab people's shoulders. Because, the sweet spot is a little bit heavier than a racket. It's extremely smooth to maneuver. So it's actually quite sound to be able to help with injury prevention as well as rehab. It builds your tennis muscles because it's so big and strong, and it allows you to actually hit balls on the tennis court, which is hard when you train. Most of us go to the gym and you work with bands, to try to build the tennis muscles, but none of it is really true to a real tennis swing, and there is no ball feedback, so you're not able to actually hit the ball and see what it does. So you strengthen your muscles and you hope that, the motions that you did in the gym or in the weight room will translate into gains on the court. With the Sweet Spotter, you work out because it's heavier than a racket. You train the very tennis muscles that you have, and you're actually able to hit the ball. And if you hit right, if you hit it in the perfect sweet spot, it goes straight just like a tennis ball. So it gives you, audible feedback as well as visual feedback. It forces you to actually have to move up to the ball, because if you try to make contact with that bat up at your shoulder, it's going to go all over the place. So people intuitively start to move towards the ball, to make contact at their hip, which is exactly why we all want to make contact, hitting the ball on the rise, at our center of gravity. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, the results have been astonishing to me. And, I have some of my players that are using it have also improved quite a bit. I have my number one player at Holton, who went from no ranking at all to now I think she's number 2 in the 18s in the Mid-Atlantic, and she uses it on a regular basis. It's pretty amazing.
It's nice to see. I mean, it's so awesome to see that you've written it. Can you tell us real quick the name of the book again that you wrote?
The name of the what?
The book. Did you write a book, you said?
Oh, well, it has not been published. It was actually published as a video ebook, okay, and it's called Tennis RX, but it's not available on the market. The version that I wrote was called The Tennis Revelation. I'm considering actually publishing it because it's full of concepts that are so different than your typical, tennis concept that are taught out there. I talk about something called the gas tank. The gas tank to me is a concept that I teach my girls. I tell them when you walk on the tennis court, you need to know who you're facing. Look at them. That tells you right away if their gas tank is fit for battle, how much gas they have. If someone is slightly overweight, then you know that their gas tank is going to be fairly small, So that right there should already tell you what type of strategy you can use. You really want to make somebody run around if their gas tank looks small. Now, if your gas tank is not where it needs to be, you don't want to get into a really long, lengthy battle. You want to try to end the point quickly. That means going to the net or trying to go for bigger shots. Concepts like that really have nothing to do with technique, but more to do with being aware of what you're facing and where the opportunities are.
Right, that is great. So hopefully you'll be publishing that soon. That's a great information to be out there. The more we can get out there for the recreational players, people that are trying to better themselves through private lessons and websites like yours and books like that are definitely very helpful. The website is fifthsettennis.com. Now, is that a membership-only website, or is there also some free content people can check out?
Not at all. It's actually, we have a ton of free content that people can consume at their own leisure. And we have some evergreen courses that they can purchase. One is called the Serve Accelerator, and we got some great reviews about that. We have Dynamic Footwork Formula, which is really my favorite course because teaching people how to move and teaching people how to get to the ball to maximize opportunities is really my forte. And then there is one other course that we have filmed that we've made evergreen where I basically documented my process of getting myself ready for competition. I have a strength coach who used to be the U.S. men's fitness champion. His name is Dan Reiser. And he prepared me for 8 weeks prior to playing the Talbot Cup. The Talbot Cup is a tournament where each region brings a team of former college and professional players, and they play against each other. I think it's New England versus the Mid-Atlantic versus Middle States, and then I think there is another region. I forgot the name. And it's basically a 2-day competition where we all face each other. You play at your position, so I played number 1 for the Mid-Atlantic, and won all my matches, and then won both my matches in singles and doubles, and we ended up winning the Talbot Cup because of it, following, this training that we documented. So it was great to basically have a piece where, I walk everybody through exactly what I did, to get ready, and then we actually have the results to back it up. So timing was right, I think, for that one.
That is great. So great products out there. So the website is called fifthsettennis.com. I encourage people to check it out. I've seen it myself. It looks fantastic. A lot of great information on there. The product is called the Sweet Spotter. So the website, the Sweet.
Actually, the website for you have it almost right. The website for the tennis lessons is fifthset.com, as in fifth set in tennis, and the Sweet Spotter is sweetspottertennis.com. So that's where you got the tennis from. So it's fifthset.com and sweetspottertennis.com.
Perfect. We want to get that straight. We will have links for both of these on pro10radio.com. And, Yann, thank you so much. Yann's going to actually come back with us in a few minutes. We're going to do the Passion Shots radio show if we can get a few of the technical glitches we're having on this end. So for right now, we're going to take a break. Yann, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you on the other side. Hold on one second.
Thank you for having me.
Do you know how fast you were going, son?
Call me Ed.
Do you know how fast you were going, Ed?
You mean exactly?
Yes, exactly.
No, not exactly. How fast?
Fast.
Fast, sir?
You were going very fast.
Fast is my job, officer.
Fast is your job?
Yes, sir.
What kind of job?
I deliver, sir.
What do you deliver?
The world's greatest gourmet sandwiches.
I thought Jimmy John's had the world's greatest gourmet sandwiches.
Jimmy John's does have the world's greatest gourmet sandwiches.
So you deliver for Jimmy John's?
I deliver for Jimmy John's.
So do you always deliver fast?
I always deliver fast.
How fast?
I deliver something so fast you freak.
It's not smart to freak a cop, son.
You didn't order Jimmy John's sub, sir.
So if I did order a Jimmy John's sub, when would I get it?
Now.
What if I don't want it now?
Then call later.
Or I can pick it up myself.
Or you can pick it up yourself.
Because I'm pretty fast, too.
I'm sure you are, sir.
Very fast.
I believe you, sir.
Faster than you.
No way, sir.
Way faster.
In your dreams.
You dissing me, son?
No, sir, I'm polite.
Fast and polite?
Very polite and very, very fast.
Is that a challenge, son?
No, sir, it's a fact.
Let's burn rubber, kid.
It wouldn't be fair.
Why not?
You've got a fully blown V8 Camaro with slicks and headers.
So?
I've got a 10-speed bike.
I'll let you off with a warning.
They try and make it seem like they want to protect kids from smoking. But in reality, they've been targeting children for decades. They used to make and sponsor cartoons to market cigarettes. But despite these shows being popular among children, they claimed that these cartoons were for an adult audience. Then, they paid movies to feature their brands. Some of your favorite superhero movies have characters that the industry actually paid to smoke on screen. One industry exec said that,
"We must continue to exploit new opportunities to get cigarettes on screen and into the hands of smokers."
And now they carefully place posters and other ads at convenience stores and push new products that look and taste just like candy. Who eats candy and sees ads that are 3 feet off the ground? Come on. So you want to know why I'm tobacco free? Because I don't want their marketing to reach my little system. That's why. Learn more at whydoyouthink.com. That's the letter whydoyouthink.com.
Hi, this is 10-time Grand Slam doubles champion Ann Smith, and you're listening to the Pro 10 Radio Network. Catch me live on the Players Lounge, Thursday, May 29th at 7 p.m. Pacific.
You are listening to Passing Shots with Pete Zebron on the Pro 10 Radio Network, a production of Pro 10 Global Sports. Enjoy the show.
And welcome back. Pete Zebron on Passing Shots with special guest tonight, Yann Auzoux. And Juan, welcome back to the show. Indeed. I want to talk a little bit about the Roland Garros tournament going on right now. Interesting that yesterday we lost both Australian Open champions, Stan Wawrinka and Li Na. Sort of a tough draw for Stan right out of the gate, 41st ranked Guillermo Garcia Lopez. And then and then Lee, had a really good clay court season this year. Played Sharapova very tough. Sharapova had to dig deep to win that match, and had some other pretty good results. Lost a 3-setter to Sarah Irani coming in, but I don't think anybody really expected her to lose to the 103rd ranked player in the world. Your thoughts on that, Yann?
I train at the National Training Center in Paris at Roland Garros, so I'm very familiar with those courts, and I can tell you that the weather, to me, was a big factor. Anytime that you have high levels of humidity, it actually has a tendency to favor lower-ranked players because it really evens out the levels. It gives a chance. The ball doesn't travel as fast. It bounces high. It slows down quite a bit. So, someone like Garcia Lopez, who is truly a clay courter, going against Stan, and Stan is a very heavy hitter who needs to, have that edge. I could see how, the weather and, the damp condition could literally sway, everything in Garcia's favor. As far as Mladenovic, she's a French player, so she trains at that National Training Center. It's a home turf. And that, too, really gives you kind of an edge. It's your home court advantage. Being French, I am sure that she was strongly encouraged by the French public. And, they always say if you want to take down a seed, it's better to take them down early in the draws, before they get comfortable with their environment and, the tournament setting. Usually, seeds drop in the first round, second round, third round, you start to lose a lot less than that. By the time they're in the fourth round, they're in full gear, and it's very hard to beat them.
Indeed, and Garcia Lopez and Wawrinka actually played 4 times previously on clay, and they split those 2 apiece. So, not as big a surprise per se. But I want to talk to you about Stan. Obviously, he's knocking on the door for quite a while. Big wins for him in Melbourne, getting the job done there, and then obviously coming back and winning Monte Carlo, huge tournament, first Masters 1000 for him. But what do you see on the horizon for Stan Wawrinka for possibly the rest of 2014 and into next year as well, Yann?
He's one to watch, but I'll tell you, the longevity of players' performance really, really gets tested as the season, goes on. We're looking at 6 months worth of tennis already, and you see a guy like Djokovic had a wrist injury. You see Nishikori, suffering from injury. So the less seasoned superstars are starting to show signs of weakness. It's a long season. So I have the feeling that actually losing the first round for Stan is going to be almost, a good thing, because he's going to be able to kind of gather his thoughts and be refreshed and really train and concentrate for Wimbledon. I'm not sure that he's going to win another Grand Slam this season, because this is usually when, the top players like the Nadal and, the Djokovic and even Federer, who's still around and playing quite well, start to really gather steam. That stretch between the French Open and Wimbledon really sets all these players apart. And then you follow that up with the grueling, summer season. That's when we tend to lose a lot of heads. Like you see the Del Potro now, he's also out because of injuries. I mean, all those guys, it's hard to sustain that longevity that is required to be able to be really good. I have high hopes for Stan, but I don't see him doing very well towards the end of the season. I see him kind of sustaining a good level of performance, maybe quarters and semis of most of the tournaments that he'll play, but I think he's going to have a hard time.
Yeah, looking at that from a positive spin, if you will, losing early. This is the last clay courts tournament of the year, and I cover Cincinnati every year, Yann, and Federer has won that 5 times, but he's also lost his first match out a couple of times. Murray way back when, and Karlovic a few years ago, and Roger was joking, saying, "Well, I'd rather win it or lose early rather than be in the quarters every year." So Stan, as you mentioned, will have extra time into the grass court season. You mentioned just in that last description someone else who has a little bit on the injury bug right now. Kei Nishikori, very impressive year, but difficult first rounder against Martin Klizan, who's won a clay court tournament this year. But Nishikori really had a great run in Rome. Played Madrid, probably should have beaten Rafa if his body held out a little bit more. But again, big question for Nishikori is can he stay healthy? Your thoughts on what's in Kei's future?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. This is a player that I think if he had been healthy would have really given Nadal a run for his money. I think he would have won it if he had stayed healthy. He was playing brilliantly. This is also a player that's fairly short, who really relies on his speed and his court coverage. So if his legs or his back is at all, less than 100%, I can see how, he's going to have a hard time dominating. He trained quite hard to be able to sustain again, that clay court season, which is really grueling. And I hope for him that this is actually good news as well, to lose early and be able to get some time off and heal properly. This is a very long stretch for them. I see him actually doing a little bit better than Stan. I don't know why, but to me, he's a lot less up and down. Stan can be up and down quite a bit, but Kei is usually very steady. So I actually see him doing very well in the hardcore season. He's a counterpuncher. He's somebody that is not going to overdo it, and the hardcore season, I think, is going to be a lot more favorable to him than to Stan.
Absolutely, and putting your coach's hat on for a moment, Yann. Obviously, Brad Gilbert worked with Kay for a little bit, but Michael Chang is in his camp right now, and wondering your thoughts on what you think Michael has done with respect to Kay's game at this time.
I think the most important part is belief. You know, to me, you have a lot of players out there that have the talent, but mentally you have to really build a different type of thought process, believing that you belong, believing that you can be there, and surrounding yourself with people who have made it. You know, Michael Chang has won the French Open. Michael Chang has been in the top 5 for a decade, you know, so this is somebody that can certainly give him that extra edge and that level of experience that will make him understand the requirements to be able to perform at that level and to stay a top caliber player. You know, having that discipline and having that work ethic and making sure that you have the proper preparation. You see that trend, you know, with all these players surrounding themselves with former greats, you know, people that have actually won tournaments. So I think that Michael Chang has really given him that belief, you know, that he can play at that level and that he belongs there, which is really key to starting to make your mark in the top 5.
Indeed. I like that matchup, that partnership quite a bit. And someone else, we talked about the ups and downs, someone who's very down, who just got his first win a couple of days ago for the first time since February in Rotterdam, Jerzy Janowicz, who, let's not forget, got all the way to the semis at Wimbledon last year and was playing Andy Murray very tough. I believe he was up a set and a break and lost his way a little bit. But, you know, Jerzy, big game, and was injured shortly after Wimbledon. I saw him play. Actually, James Blake got him in the first round in Cincy when Janowicz wasn't 100%, and Blake was on his way out. But your thoughts on maybe what isn't clicking for Jerzy, and taking it a step further, Yann, who do you think might be, you know, a very good coach in Janowicz's corner to get him to maximize his potential?
You know, Jerzy to me is an intriguing player. He strikes me as a little bit of a head case. You know, he tends to get very angry. I've seen him at the U.S. Open cracking rackets and, you know, really screaming at the umpire and having a hard time controlling his nerves. So to me, a good coach would be somebody who would really calm him down and give him this zen, you know, feedback. I don't know who would be available at the moment to help him out, but God, I forgot the name of the Australian coach who's a commentator.
Cahill. Darren Cahill.
Cahill, yes, Darren. Darren, I think, would be kind of a calming force for somebody like Jerzy, you know, helping him to really control his nerves, you know, and really focus on the task. Everybody else, I think, would have a hard time helping him to stay relaxed and allowing his game to really dominate, because he has a very dominant game. He's big serve, big strokes, you know, beautiful slice. He comes to the net quite a bit, and he's able to really, you know, press you. And but if you get angry, obviously you're not able to control yourself as well, and you're not making the right choices all the time. You know, he also got injured, which is unfortunate for him. But that also sometimes has to do with your level of preparation as well as the choices that you make on the court. You know, so a guy like Monfils is a perfect example. Monfils has seen a lot of injuries because the choice of style that he picks, you know, and the type of, you know, flamboyant strategies that he allows himself to get into causes him a lot of problems. You know, so Jerzy to me is kind of in the same boat as Monfils. You know, these are players that really need to learn how to be efficient, calm, and you know, just allow themselves to improve and stay zen like the Djokovic and the Nadal and the Federer, especially if you have the game for it.
Indeed, and speaking of the firepower and you know, flashes of anger and disgust on the court, I'm going to bring someone up who I've seen a little bit of, and very intriguing player who I think has a big game, and a very intriguing second round match. Yann, Benoit Paire is playing Baptiste Agut, and Pair, wow, when he's on, he's had some very impressive results in the last year or so. And, Batista Agut, I believe, is seeded 27th. Talk to me a little bit about Benoit Paire and this matchup, second round against Batista Agut.
Benoit is a very good player, very tricky to play. Again, long, perfect for the French pedigree. Players are just very talented, great on clay, able to do anything and everything, but sometimes lack a little bit of that mental edge that's necessary to break through. I'm going to go with Batista, to be honest with you, on that one. It's a tricky match, but, Latin players have the tendency to be a little less, a little more disciplined. They rely on things they know will work. They're more efficient, and I have the feeling that it's going to work against Benoit. He's going to have the French crowd, but the French crowd can turn against you very quickly, as you know. Yeah. If you're not playing well, they can boo you any second. If you're playing great, everything is fine. But, if Batista gives him a hard time, they could start to go against him very quickly. So I'm actually going to pick Batista on that one.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. He's obviously a seed this year. He's had a very good last few months especially, so I'm looking forward to that match. And another intriguing second-round match, Yann, someone who's really had a very good start to 2014, has come through qualifying just about everywhere he's gone since he hasn't yet gotten into the main draw, but that's going to change very quickly. Dominic Thiem, and, he's of Austria. He's into the second round, and who does he get? Rafael Nadal. And want to get your thoughts on Thiem, if you've been able to see him play, who he reminds you of, and, boy, does he have any chance to do any making inroads on Nadal's game tomorrow, or the next round.
Well, he's definitely a young player to watch. It's funny. He just beat one of our sweet spotter pupils, at a challenger, and really rocked him. So that got my attention, and I had seen, just kind of glancing at draws, that he had been doing very well. Like you said, qualifying and even clipping a couple of players that did not expect it. And obviously now he's going up against Nadal. It's tough to play Nadal at the French. It's tough to play Nadal on the Châtrier court. It's tough to play Nadal, period, on clay. I think he'll have a great showing. I hope for him that he wins at least one set. I think it's going to be very tough to take Nadal down. The conditions also I don't think will favor Thiem. Nadal is great on clay no matter what conditions he's put against. If it's dump, it's going to really help Nadal's game because Nadal can cover everything. Nadal doesn't lack any power, so, But to be able to beat Nadal at the French, I think you need more firepower than Dominic can muster. I think you need to be able to come out with the goods. That's how the only match I ever lost was against a player that just overpowered him. And that's hard to do against Nadal at the French, especially on a 5-set match. So I think Nadal will win. I hope it's not a 3-setter. I hope for Thiem that it's a 4-setter, but I have the feeling it's going to be 3 straight sets.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is obviously that's going to be a primary telecast all around the world with Nadal playing at Roland Garros or no matter where he plays, and I think Dominic Thiem is going to win a lot of fans around the world with respect to people who are tuning in and seeing him play for the first time because it's he really gives it his all, and excuse me, I hope that goes more than 3 sets as well, but we shall see. And something that was really a theme the early part of this year, Yann, especially in Australia and New Zealand, and it spilled over a little bit into February and March, is retirements, both on the men's and women's side. And we had 4 men retire in the first set. Almagro, Montañez, Dodic, and Tommy Haas was leading 5-2 against Zope of Estonia when he retired. I think he's 36, and this boy, I don't know how much longer Tommy has. That opens up a nice opportunity for Gael Monfils. But your thoughts on the number of injuries that we have seen earlier in the year, and the fact that 4 men retired in the first set of their first match.
Mm-hmm.
But talking a little bit about Haas in particular here.
Again, I'm going to blame that one on the weather. It's been extremely cold in Paris, which is, very unseasonable. And, that is really definitely a factor that will hurt players from all levels. Those guys have one-handed backhands, both Haas and Almagro, which means that they don't get the help of their second hand. They really have to just brush. They have to cover a lot of court. At least for Haas, he's older, so this is somebody that really needs the conditions to be in his favor. He needs to be able to warm up properly. Being 42 years old myself, I know how important it is for the conditions to be perfect. To be able to produce your best tennis. That was a little bit of a surprise to me because he hasn't played that much. Maybe he was nursing something that we don't know about. That's the only kind of question that I have for him, because not all of them are not necessarily that open about what's going on in their lives. But we didn't see him that much in previous events feeding into the French Open. And then to be up 5-2 and then to just stop, that tells me that it must be an injury that's a bad one. Because usually they would at least try to finish the first set and see how he goes. He really just pulled out, and so it must be something serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too bad. Matches I've ever seen personally, he beat Roddick in Indian Wells, and he's just a gamer. Obviously, spent a considerable amount of time off the court. I read where this is actually the 23rd match of Haas's career that he had to retire in. So that's a big number. Obviously, Tommy's been on tour for a long time, but still very disappointing to see that at a major. Want to bring up yet another very intriguing second-round match, and two very flashy players. I don't think anybody on tour wants to play these guys, but the interesting note here, Yann, they both came from 2-0 down in their first-round match. They're going to play each other. The new Mr. Davis Cup, Radek Stepanek, is going to play Mikhail Yuzhny. Credit to both those guys from coming to 2-0 down, and they both have spent a lot of time on the court. They're going to play each other, but how do you see that one panning out?
That's an interesting one. I admit, I'm right there with you. Both of them have very different styles. I mean, Radek Stepanek has a tendency to want to move forward and come to the net. And, Yuzhny is excellent at the baseline, just kind of a power player, but the power baseline player. I have the feeling that, to me, Yuzhny has a better chance than Radek Stepanek, just because I think he's a more complete player. He's also more comfortable on clay than Radek is. Radek moves forward and really presses you, and I think, again, the damp conditions will really alter his ability to move forward. Yuzhny is an excellent passer, and so I'm going to go with Mikhail on that one, and just simply because I think he's a steadier player and he just has more of a clay court game, and the damp conditions, if the weather doesn't get better in Paris, will really favor his style. But definitely a great match to watch. I mean, this is going to be a very colorful match with a lot of great shots and great shot making, and both of them are just great players. They're older, so it's also going to be interesting to see a more conventional way to strike the ball, at least from Radek's side, and see how that pan out. But I'm going to pick Yuzhny for that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that as well. Stepanek, obviously a warrior out there. Nobody likes to play him, but I agree. I think steadier game, especially in the conditions that we've seen so far in Paris this week. I think that favors Mikhail Yuzhny as well. And Yann, we're gonna come back and talk about the WTA side at Roland Garros when we come back after this break. Don't go away.
Sounds good.
Gatorade was created over 50 years ago when a University of Florida assistant football coach approached a team of physicians and asked them to determine why so many of his players lacked endurance. The researchers discovered two key factors were causing the Gator players to wilt. The electrolytes and the carbohydrates the players' bodies used for energy were lost through sweat and were not being replaced. The researchers took these findings to the lab and scientifically formulated a new, precisely balanced carbohydrate electrolyte beverage that adequately replaced the key components lost by the Gator players through sweat and exercise. They called this concoction Gatorade. Fueling legends for over 50 years. Gatorade, is it in you?
It's time to change the way you change filters, bulbs, and batteries. Meet Joe Filter. The quality of your home's water, the cleanliness of your home's air, and the function of your smoke detectors are issues crucial to health and well-being, but they are often ignored. The solution? Let Joe Filter come to your home on a set schedule to change air and water filters, alarm batteries, and hard-to-reach light bulbs. Get them all taken care of for just a few dollars a month. Joe Filter stocks all the materials and knows when they need to be replaced. He'll also dispose of old filters, bulbs, and batteries in an environmentally safe manner. Call today for more information and let Joe Filter put your home on autopilot.
The Den Academy is a family affair. You know, my dad, my wife, my brother, myself, we're all a part of it. We all grew up in tennis. We all are passionate about tennis.
Being on the court with your son is good. We both have a good time with it. We both say things differently but mean the same thing.
Let's see the grip. Don't change it. Oh, I saw it. What makes a great coach is many things, but it ultimately comes down to seeing the game correctly and then being able to communicate that to the player efficiently, right? So just nice and whippy behind that ball. When you finally get through to a player and you get them on the same page as you are, it's a pretty cool feeling. Oh, nice. Getting it. You get giddy. You know, you get excited. It's this competition. This is emotion. It's intensity out there. I mean, you know, that's what passion is all about, right?
Hi, this is Vic Braden, and you're listening to the Pro 10 Radio Network. Catch me live on the Coach's Corner, Thursday, May 29th at 7 p.m.
Welcome back to Shots on the Pro Radio Network. Pete Zebron with Yann Auzoux. And Yann, welcome back. We're going to talk about the women's side of Roland Garros going on right now, and probably something that got everybody's attention in looking at the draw right out of the gate is a potential probable Serena Williams-Venus Williams third-round match, and both ladies are one win away from that taking place. Serena seems to be everyone's favorite right now for the most part, especially with losing today. Your thoughts on Serena Williams?
Well, first of all, I think it's just wonderful that these two might have a shot to play each other. I think it's been a couple of years since we've had that pair face each other in singles. So I'm looking forward to seeing the two sisters go at it. It's always a very curious match between the two of them, where Serena more emotional than Venus. I don't think Venus has been able to beat her in a couple of years, though. So, I think Venus, Serena will be able to prevail. But it's always an interesting match, because it's never as one-sided as one would expect. There is that sister relationship that kicks in, and they're doubles partners, they're best friends, they're sisters. There's a lot more going on than just tennis, and that creates some very unpredictable results at times. But obviously Serena is the big favorite. I'd be very surprised considering how, Venus, although Venus actually did well in Dubai, so, we can't take that away from her. But Serena is just, I think, in a league of her own right now. It's very hard to beat. Are you there?
Yeah, I think
Hello?
you may have. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I hear you just fine.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no, you know what? There we go. He's back.
Yep, I'm
I don't
back.
know what happened.
Yep.
I hear you just fine.
Okay, yep.
There we
And,
go.
hi, congratulations. Jeannie Bouchard and Monica Puig each won their first WTA titles on Saturday in Strasbourg and Nuremberg, Yann. And, there's always a question, more so on the men's side, should people play the week before a major? And usually the guys don't have great results. And Jeannie Bouchard only lost 2 games in her first-round match. Monica Puig, on the other hand, sort of a crummy draw for her. She got Sam Stosur, who obviously was a finalist and 2-time semifinalist at Roland Garros. She only won 2 games, but want to get your thoughts on both players and sort of the concept of playing a tournament the week before a major heading in.
I'm not a big fan of playing, a tournament, a warm-up tournament before a Grand Slam. Really fitting into, the biggest, grueliest draw that you can possibly be entered into. Usually people who play it, I don't think have any aspirations of going very far. They're just either chasing points or, trying to prepare for the tournaments to follow the French Open. Obviously, Bouchard, being who she is and seeded, did not play a very confident player. She beat Shahar Peer, and Shahar has not been playing well in at least 2-3 years now. So that was not too difficult of a first draw, I don't think. Also, Bouchard is a different caliber player than Puig. She's somebody who makes it in the 3rd or 4th round of pretty much every tournament that she enters. So she's used to, again, that level of play, the demands that, being that type of caliber player requires. Puig, to me, is a little less experienced at that level. And obviously, like you said, going up against Sam, that's just not a very good gift in your first round. Sam has an insane kick serve, and he's just a brutal, dominant player from the back, and you just need to have a bigger game than Puig. Puig is very short. I don't even think she's 5 feet tall. So how do you handle that kick serve when Sam is on? I don't even know how to answer that question. So I'm not surprised. I just don't think that Puig and Bouchard have the same aspirations in the French. Bouchard has the potential to go farther, but I don't think that was a bright idea to play so much tennis before the French Open, because she's going to be facing some really tough opponents. I give her maybe another 2 rounds, and then we'll see.
I think maybe she decided to play that because she had pretty poor results on clay and didn't have much match play.
Are you guys there? I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, I'm here. Are you able to hear me, Yann?
Yeah, I hear you very well now.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think the only players, men or women, who benefit from playing the week before are Berdych and Ferrer, and they've made it a point. They usually play a warm-up tournament before a major. They didn't this time, but I agree with you. That's not really smart scheduling. Again, congratulations to Jeannie and Monica for winning, but might have to rethink that going forward. And before we come up on another break, Yann, I want to ask you about another very interesting, intriguing second-round match on the women's side. Svetlana Kuznetsova, a 2-time major champion who, in fact, won Roland Garros in 2009. I think she's a little bit of a dark horse. She's got a very, very heavy-hitting, my version of the women's version of Fernando Gonzalez. Kuznetsova is going to play Camilla Giorgi. I was wondering if we can get your thoughts on that match before we go to a break.
Yeah, that's a tough one to call. I mean, obviously, Kuznetsova was number one in the world, let's not forget that. So that means that she's used to being at that level. She's been a little unpredictable lately. She's come close but has not been able to close a lot of the matches that she led. I think she was up on Radwanska a couple of weeks ago and had a chance to close it and didn't close it. And Georgie, she too is quite unpredictable. She's had some great wins, but she's also had some really weird losses. It's going to be interesting to watch that one. I wouldn't put my money on either one of them because it's just too close to call, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Svetlana. I really think that she could be a potential dark horse. Maybe not to win it, but to certainly do some damage, although she has won it in the past. And, Yann, we're going to come up on another break right now, and we'll come back and finish up the show when we come back after this.
Hey, Thirst, can I try out a few Coke Summer sound effects on you? Cool. You okay with this? And this? And what about this? Gotcha there, Thirst. That wasn't sound effects. That was a Coke. I'm no longer thirsty. You're so out of here. Coca-Cola. Open happiness.
What is this bill for $562? Let me call these people.
Thanks for calling Big Tobacco. How can I be of assistance?
Hi, I was going through my mail and saw this bill saying I owe $562 for smoking-related expenses.
That's correct, ma'am.
Yeah, what's the deal with this bill?
You see, smokers miss more work and retire earlier, which costs Nevadans $903 million in lost productivity per year. Also, smokers get sick with diseases like lung cancer and emphysema, costing another $565 million in medical expenses. So, when you add it up and divide by a total number of Nevadans, it comes out to $562 per Nevada household.
Okay, but I don't smoke.
Whether you smoke or not, every Nevadan pays the bill.
You know what? I'm not paying this bill.
Actually, you already did. And you'll be making the same payment again next year. Well, thank you for your call.
Hello?
Is smoking worth it? Learn more at smokefreevegas.com. That's smokefreevegas.com. Or for free help quitting smoking, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Made possible by funding from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Little Caesars, home of the $5 hot and ready pepperoni pizza, now has a deep, deep dish pizza with 8 crispy caramelized corner slices and even more cheese and pepperoni. So head on down and grab a large for just $8 and tell them Alan Varner sent you. They won't know who that is, but as a voice actor, I'm always trying to get my name out there. Check me out at alandoesvoices.com. That's ALAN doesvoices.com. But first, get the new deep, deep dish pizza. It's hot and ready every day from 4 to 8 p.m. for just $8, only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
And participating locations plus tax.
Hi, this is Jeff Salzenstein.
Hi, this is Kendall Hart.
Hi, this is Dick Gould.
Hi, this is John Embry, and you're listening to the Coach's Corner on Pro 10 Radio Network. Catch me live on Wednesday, May 28th at 1 o'clock Pacific.
Welcome back to Passing Shots. Pete Zebron with Yann Auzoux. And Yann, welcome back. I want to talk a little bit about the women's matchups in Roland Garros. Get your pick before we go back to get your selection on the ATP side. But, wow, what a loaded top quarter we have. We have Serena Williams, Venus Williams, Sam Stosur, Dominika Sobolkova, Sabina Lisicki, and Maria Sharapova all in one quarter of the draw at Roland Garros. Obviously, most people looking to pick Serena Williams out of their potential blockbuster quarterfinal against Maria Sharapova. Want to get your thoughts on who's coming out of that quarter, as well as your pick for the ladies Roland Garros champion in 2014.
It's a very interesting draw, like you very well put it. It's very rare to have Sharapova on the same side of the draw as Serena. It's only very recently with the rise of the Radwanskas and Lena that she's actually been pushed to that side of the draw. I still think that Serena, out of all of them, will come out on top, but I actually think that she's going to come out of it bruised. It's going to be quite some pretty tough battles, both emotional battles and physical battles. And I actually picked Radwanska for this one. I think she's long overdue. Lena is out of the draw, so I just don't see who's going to be able to give her a hard time on that side. So I think that she will benefit greatly from all the bruising battles that Serena out of the draw will have to sustain. So I'm picking Radwanska for the French Open final this year.
Oh, nice pick. And, let's not forget, Aga Radwanska was one set away. She took Serena to 3 at Wimbledon a few years ago, and had Aga won that match, she would have been the number 1 player in the world. Came very, very close, and a storming comeback against Serena after being dominated in the first set. So I like your pick. I'm going to go with Serena Williams to win that. I guess with everybody, I think she's very, very determined to get that done. But I like your pick of Aga, and I agree that she's overdue. And before we get your pick for the men's championship, Yann, I want to ask you a little bit. Somebody that a lot of people are talking about, who's had a pretty good clay court season. Grigor Dimitrov, however, loses in 3 sets, straight sets today to Ivo Karlovic, who's made his way all the way back up to number 37 in the world, had some health issues and some surgeries, and all credit to Ivo. But your thoughts on maybe what didn't happen for Dimitrov today, and then let's get a winner for you on the men's side.
It's funny. I watched Grigor play I think it's last week, where he played a guy from either the Ukraine or a qualifier, someone who